Salutations, everyone. I hope you are doing well, I guess. Hope you're doing well. Sorry I've not been uploading. I was meant to record the other week, but I didn't really feel up to it. I went to record the other day, or last week even, but boxing was on. I wanted to watch boxing. Let me ask you a question about that. If Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury had their potential bout, who's your money on? For me, it's Anthony Joshua. So this man I'm going to be talking about today is probably the most hated man. Well, before I say his name, if you're a fan of true crime, you might have heard this guy's name before. If you live in the Midlands, specifically in Leicester, then I know you've heard this man's name. He's arguably the most hated man in Leicester. So, the person's name, you might have heard it before, is Colin Pitchfork. He lived at 6 Brascut Lane. Oh wait, before we start, please, get yourself a drink, get yourself a snack, make yourself comfortable. And please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. So, Pitchfork lived at 6 Brascut Lane in Newbold Verdon, attending school in Market Bosworth and Bosworth College in Desford. He was in the first Newbold Verdon Scout Group, gaining the Chief Scouts Award in September 1976. He was one of 4 scouts chosen in Leicestershire to go to the 14th World Scout Jamboree in Norway in August 1975 amongst 1,600 scouts from the UK. Molly Pitchfork, who was his mother, tell by the name, was the group scout leader. He had briefly joined the Venture Scout unit run by his mother, but his increasing collection of sexual convictions became incompatible with remaining in the unit. There'll be more about his sexual convictions later. He married a social worker in early 1981 and moved to the Leicestershire village of Littlethorpe. Before his marriage, he had been convicted of indecent exposure and had been referred for therapy to the Carlton Hayes Hospital in Narborough. He obtained work in Hampshire's bakery in Leicester in 1976 as an apprentice at the bakery head office on King Richard III Road. Coombs, Hampshire's closed in 2011 near the present-day Castlemead Academy. He continued to work there until his arrest for something we will talk about later. He became particularly skilled as a sculptor of cake decorations and had hoped eventually to start his own cake decorating business. According to his supervisor, he was a good worker and timekeeper, but he was moody. He couldn't leave women employees alone. He was always chatting them up. Every workplace has got someone like that. Someone who's a bit dodgy. Now, I noticed I said Leicestershire. Yes, I didn't say Leicestershire because I'm northern. I don't care. Fight me. In October 1977, when we get onto it, it's an absolute whirlwind. In October 1977, he was fined £30 by Market Bosworth magistrates for exposing himself to a schoolgirl, pleading guilty when aged 17. In 1979, Pitchfork forced a 16-year-old girl into a field and sexually assaulted her. On February the 14th, 1980, when aged 20, he exposed himself to 2 teenage girls in Earl Shilton and was given a year's probation by Hinckley magistrates. On 21st of November 1983, 15-year-old Linda Mann took a shortcut on her way home from babysitting instead of taking her normal route home. She did not return home, and her parents and neighbours spent the night searching for her. The next morning, she was found raped and strangled on a deserted footpath known locally as the Black Pad. Using forensic science techniques available at the time, police linked a semen sample taken from her body to a person with type A blood and an enzyme profile that matched only 10% of males. With no other leads or evidence, the case was left open. In October 1985, Pitchfork sexually assaulted another 16-year-old girl, threatening her with a screwdriver and with a knife at her throat. Liz Knight was picked up by Pitchfork on a Saturday in June 1986 and driven for 40 minutes from Wigston towards Great Glen. When she grabbed the steering wheel, Pitchfork's demeanour suddenly changed and he decided to drive her to her house and not attack her. He put his hand on her knee, saying, "I haven't hurt you yet." Pitchfork dropped Knight at her house, asking, how about a good night kiss?" which she refused. He then said, "I bet you will never accept a lift from a stranger again." So I think we can tell this is a pretty messed up son of a bitch. On the 13th of July 1986, 15-year-old Dawn Ashworth left her home to visit a friend's house. Her parents expected her to return at 9:30. When she failed to do so, they called the police to report her missing. 2 days later, her body was found in a wooded area near a footpath called 10 Pound Lane. She had been beaten, savagely raped and strangled. The modus operandi matched that of the first attack, and semen samples revealed the same blood type. Both girls had attended Brockington High School. Just a bit of background information there. An initial suspect was Richard Buckland, who was a local 17-year-old with learning difficulties who, while innocent of both murders, revealed knowledge of Ashworth's body and admitted to the Ashworth crime under questioning, denying the first murder. In early 1987, police asked every local male between the ages of 16 and 34 to voluntarily give blood samples for DNA testing. By the end of January, 1,000 men had been tested. Men who declined to give blood samples found themselves under scrutiny by the police. In case you didn't know, DNA profiling was invented in Leicester. More on that in a minute. According to 1988 news reports, one of Pitchfork's colleagues at the bakery, 23-year-old Ian Kelly, who lived outside the area under investigation, was overheard in a pub called the Clarendon discussing how he had provided a blood sample on Pitchfork's behalf by using a fake passport to masquerade as Pitchfork. He had agreed to do this in exchange for £200 and took the test on the 29th of January 1987. Another work colleague also mentioned that they had likewise been approached to take the DNA test for Pitchfork. The conversation during the lunchtime of Saturday, August the 1st, 1987 was overheard by other bakery colleagues and 28-year-old Jackie Foggin of Fleckney. She reported it to the police, but not until 18th of September. Okay, that's over a month and a half. Why is it taking you that long? From the 1st of August to the 8th of August to the 18th of September? Why is it taking you that long? This vital tip-off was later credited with enabling Pitchfork's capture. He had told Kelly that he wanted to avoid being harassed by police because of his prior convictions for indecent exposure. Ian Kelly was arrested at 31 Stewart Street in Leicester on Friday, 18th of September, and received 18 months. On Saturday the 19th of September 1987, Pitchfork was arrested at 32 Haybarn Close in Littlethorpe by Detective Inspector Mick Thomas. Pitchfork's wife tried to attack Pitchfork when he told her that he had killed 2 girls. Fair play to her. During questioning, Pitchfork admitted to exposing himself to more than 1,000 women, a compulsion that began in his early teens. Why are all these crimes, like serial killers and that sort of stuff, why is it always sexual related? Like you see it with Bundy as well. He used to shag dead bodies. Like, what the fuck? Dahmer ate them. Gacy kept them, which is weird. But yeah, sexual murder should not be sexual. Never thought I'd hear myself say that, but murder should not be sexual. It's not. It's disgusting, and I do condone it because it is disgusting. And if you think that's okay, you need a checkup from the neck up. He later... I've lost where I am. Pitchfork later progressed to sexual assault and then to strangling his victims. He said this was in order to protect his identity. Investigators, however, rejected this, viewing the motivation for the strangulations as perverted sadism. During his interviews with the police, he admitted his crimes but lied about the level and nature of the violence he had inflicted on his victims. At his trial at Leicester Crown Court in January 1988, Pitchfork pleaded guilty to the 2 rapes and murders, in addition to a sexual assault of 2 other girls and conspiring to pervert the course of justice. In January 1988, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for the 2 murders and 10 years for raping the victims. He was also sentenced to 3 years for each count of sexual assault and 3 years for perverting the course of justice, with all sentences to run concurrently. A psychiatrist's report prepared for the court described Pitchfork as possessing a psychopathic personality disorder accompanied with serious psychosexual pathology. The Lord Chief Justice at the time of his sentencing said, "From the point of view of the safety of the public, I doubt if he should ever be released." If someone does something like that, don't release him anyway. Don't question it. The Secretary of State set a minimum term of 30 years in 2009. Pitchfork's minimum term sentence was reduced on appeal to 28 years. On 18th of March 1988, George Davies gave Jackie Foggin a cheque for £10,000 at the next head office in Enderby. Now we jump forward to 2016, where on the 22nd of April, the Parole Board for England and Wales heard Pitchfork's case for early release on parole. Pitchfork's advocates presented evidence of his improved character, noting that Pitchfork had furthered his education to degree level and had become expert at the transcription of printed music into Braille for the benefit of the blind people. The families of victims Linda Mann and Dawn Ashworth opposed his release on parole. On 29th of April 2016, the board announced that Pitchfork's application for release on licence had been refused, but recommended that he be moved to an open prison. In June 2016, Michael Gove, then Justice Secretary, agreed with the board's recommendation, and at some point prior to 8th of January 2017, Pitchfork was moved to an undisclosed open prison. In November 2017, Pitchfork was refused release on licence. The parole board said Pitchfork would be eligible for a further review within 2 years. Linda's mother said the board had listened to us before the murderer. In 2017, it emerged Pitchfork would be released from open prison on unsupervised days out. On the 7th of June 2021, Pitchfork was granted release on conditional licence. The Secretary of State for Justice, Robert Buckland, applied for a review of the decision under the terms of the Parole Board reconsideration mechanism, which was introduced in 2019, and Pitchfork remained in custody pending the outcome. On the 13th of July 2021, it was reported that the review had been refused and Pitchfork would therefore be released. He was released on the 1st of September 2021. In November 2021, Pitchfork was recalled to prison for breaching his licence conditions by approaching young women while on walks from his bail hostel. His second victim's mother, Barbara Ashworth, told BBC News that she was pleased he's been put away and women and girls are safe and protected from him now. There are complaints that the parole board was insufficiently cautious in allowing Pitchfork's release. The Justice Secretary, Dominic Raab, promised a parole board review. David Baker, a former police detective who helped capture Pitchfork, believes Pitchfork could deceive the parole board and pretend it was safe to release him. Baker maintains Pitchfork is a psychopath and it will never be safe to release him. Too fucking right. Literally 2 months after he was released, he was back in prison for the same fucking thing. People like that don't deserve to see the light of day, let alone be released. The parole board's hearing to consider releasing Pitchfork again was postponed to 2023. His potential release was opposed by MP Alberto Costa. In June 2023, it was announced that Pitchfork would again be released under parole. The decision was widely criticised. In July 2023, the Lord Chancellor intervened and ordered that the board reconsider their decision after a huge public outcry, considering since Pitchfork breached his licence conditions within weeks of his initial release. Pitchfork's new parole hearing took place on the 2nd and 3rd of October 2023. In December 2023, parole was denied, meaning that Pitchfork would remain in prison. He's back in prison for the same thing he did before. How many times do I need to say this, man? He's not safe. He never will be safe. You've released him on bail, on parole. He's fucked that up. He's back in prison. Any parole meeting should be instantly rejected, and he should rot in prison for the rest of his life. Pitchfork challenged the parole board's decision on procedural grounds, and in February 2024, the board agreed to schedule another hearing before a different panel to consider his potential release. On the 16th of May 2024, the parole board chair, Caroline Corby, reversed an earlier decision that Pitchfork's parole hearing should be held behind closed doors. Approval was granted for the next parole hearing to be broadcast due to public interest. There would also be a preliminary hearing behind closed doors to address practical matters. In July that year, parole board decided that the next hearing would not be held in public due to developments regarding allegations about Pitchfork's relatively recent conduct, but no further details were given at that time. In October 2025, the parole board turned down Pitchfork's parole application and refused permission for him to be moved to an open prison. And I think that's going to do it, gentlemen and ladies. But there's not really much to tell about Pitchfork. He's just a sick cunt. Plus, obviously, there's not really that much about him to know. He's not one of these serial killers where everyone knows everything about him. Pitchfork was, I mean, yeah. If he didn't get caught after his second murder, then he would have killed again. And everyone knows that. A leopard can't change his spots. So yeah, as I was saying earlier, the DNA profiling was invented in Leicester at De Montfort University. I had a mate who went to De Montfort University. I think he went there, I'm not entirely sure, but either way, shout out to Bobsy Pringles. He's been on this show before. I am trying to get him on again. Bobsy, what you playing at? Come on. The fans need you. I've lost my train of thought. Yeah, DNA profiling, Leicester, De Montfort. Pitchfork was the first person ever in the world to be caught via DNA profiling. Little fun factoid for you there. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Sorry it seemed a bit shorter than all my other crime cases. I am getting back into it slowly. Just having a lot to do at the moment. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of the video. Please leave a comment. I do read every comment, I just don't respond to them. I should do, really. Fuck it, I'm going to start responding to comments. So yeah, let me know what you thought. I appreciate any feedback you give me. Like, bad publicity is good publicity and whatnot. I don't think that's the saying. I don't think that's the right saying, but like I said, I don't care. Fight me. I'm sorry. Share the video with your friends. Please leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.